Everyone, my name is Michelle Stevens. I'm the Communications Director at the Department of Finance and Treasury Board. I'm going to be your moderator today. So just quickly before we begin, Premier Iain Rankin is going to make some brief comments on the federal budget, and then after that we're going to take your questions. So I'm going to go to the room first, and then we do have 3 reporters on the phone, so we will offer you the opportunity to ask some questions. We have about 10 or 15 minutes before the Premier has to head back over. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Premier Rankin.
Thanks, Michelle. So I've just had an opportunity to see the high-level numbers in the budget, in the federal budget. I'm pleased with what I see. There's a lot of alignment in my priorities around rebuilding an inclusive economy, equity, and environment. So there's a number of initiatives to advance the green economy, which are positive. The highlight is the childcare investment that is, I think, very substantial, and I've asked the Department of Education to look at how we can leverage that opportunity for us and build on our pre-primary program so that we can accommodate 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and look at what our opportunities are to ensure that more women especially can enter the workplace. There are a number of initiatives around entrepreneurship for women and African Nova Scotians that I want to see more details on that look positive. There's some good local initiatives around sectors like the wine sector, which should benefit Nova Scotia, small craft harbors, things like that I think are good for Nova Scotia. I didn't see significant funding for what all premiers have been asking for around the Canada Health Transfer. That would have been nice to see more of an increase. We all want to see the federal government step up more to provide funding for healthcare. So that will be a continued ask from all premiers, which I support. But overall, it's a positive budget that hits on my priorities that I've mentioned.
Did I just understand you to say that you would use the money for daycares to extend pre-primary to 2 and... Oh, okay.
No, it's just advancing beyond the years that you'd normally go to school, 5 and up. So what we would do is look at, because we have a public paying system for 4-year-olds to enter pre-primary, we'll look at how we can accommodate childcare. $10 a day seems to be the target, aligning with Quebec's system. So looking at the math, what we will be able to get, we're looking at, it looks like in the order of magnitude of $100-some million a year is just doing quick math. There's some 50-50 cost sharing, it looks like, so we have to figure out how we become eligible and how we can provide $10 a day childcare in the province.
Okay, and how soon could we go from here to there?
That's the question that we need to figure out. It looks like they have the timelines are proposed for 2025, 26, an average of $10 a day childcare in Canada. So that's $30 billion macro investment in childcare over 5 years is what the federal government's looking at. I assume it's per capita allotment, and so we're just looking at seeing how we can help leverage that money.
Okay, so we would be, sorry, on this point, so we would be due $100 million as our slice of the pie over the 5 years?
Each year over $100 million.
A year?
Yeah.
Over so $500 million.
That's quick math, yeah.
Alicia?
Yes, the latest stats, and this is, I think, from the 2016 census, but showed that there's only 30% of children, like spots for 30% of children in childcare right now in the province. So with this new funding, are you expecting that we'll have 100% capacity, or what are you kind of expecting in that regard?
Well, we have to find out details. There could be money to create more space, money to bring for wages for childcare workers. We have to look into all that. This is information I just have an hour ago, and those details aren't in that.
And just in terms of health transfers, I know that's obviously, that was something that the province had been advocating for, was more health transfers, but there's been no increase. What do you make of that?
Well, the message has been we're still in a pandemic, and we'll have that conversation after the pandemic ends. There is some targeted funding in here, which of course helps. There's some long-term care funding here that we'll look at using, but they fund 20-something% of healthcare now. In the 70s, it was 35%, so the request is to bring it back closer to those levels.
To clarify, so that over $100 million that you're expecting, would that be for this upcoming year towards childcare?
I don't know when exactly that will be. Starting in 21, 22. So yeah, there's an opportunity for this year as part of 5-year agreements. So we'll look at a bilateral agreement, and we'll look at what we contribute already to childcare, what we contribute for the pre-primary program, which is about $50 million a year. So they may take that as part of our contribution to the agreement. That needs to be worked out. But I've always said that I'm in favor of universal childcare, and I waited to see the federal budget come out to see our opportunity before we started putting our own funding in.
Realistically, what do you think you could, sorry, realistically, what could you do with $100 million a year in terms of childcare? Could you go to the $10 a day childcare with that?
You might be able to do it in 1 year for 3-year-olds, just based on the 4-year-olds accessing pre-primary at $50-some million a year. But we have to find out more about the numbers and the population and the staffing requirements.
On that note, can Nova Scotians expect that by 2025, $10 a day to childcare will be happening in Nova Scotia?
That's a lofty goal, but if we can sign an agreement to make that happen, I'd be very pleased to do that.
It's not like the Liberals federally have not promised this before. It's a promise that goes back almost 3 decades, depending on who you talk to. What gives you confidence that this time it's going to happen?
Well, I think last time they lost the budget vote, and Harper government came in, and that's why it didn't happen. So I expect that this budget will pass, hopefully, and we'll be able to leverage this opportunity, and we'll finally have universal childcare. That's been a goal. Obviously, with our pre-primary program, we wanted to provide that safety net for children, and we want to continue to make sure we're moving forward in that direction.
We just want to take a few questions from the phone. So I know on the phone we have Derek Montag from the Huddle. Do you have any questions for the Premier? Can you hear me?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry about that. Premier Rankin, a big national conversation leading up to the budget was whether or not the Liberals were going to implement a wealth tax on the richest Canadians and universal basic income. And I was wondering whether or not you would support such a thing, and whether or not the conversation around a wealth tax nationally, whether or not you think it might be a good idea to implement a wealth tax provincially to help generate more tax revenue.
Well, on the tax side, we have one of the highest tax rates for the top earners. I believe it's in the magnitude of 50% of your income when you're over 150,000 of income in Nova Scotia. So you have to be mindful of the mobility of people being able to move away once they hit certain income levels. So we thought it was appropriate to keep taxes at the same level that they were in our budget. But I am pleased to see the federal government move forward on extending the support systems from COVID. So you have CERB and those other types of labor benefits that help keep people whole when they're not working through the pandemic. So some of those are extended out September of 2021. And there's some business supports that continue to be there too. So that's all good support for Nova Scotian businesses and people.
Derek, do you have any other questions?
That's everything. Thank you.
Great. I believe we have Michael Gorman from CBC on the line. Do you have any questions for the Premier?
Hi, thanks, Premier. Your budget is passed. Things are going to wrap up tonight. I'm wondering, coming out of the House, what do you see as sort of your key priorities for the next few months, aside, obviously, from managing the pandemic?
Right. Pandemic is number one, but eager to get the Housing Commission's report in May. There'll be recommendations that we'll be looking at implementing. Environmental initiatives, continuing to advance Leahy report, more conservation, more green energy to move away from coal, those types of initiatives, and the discussion around childcare and more on long-term care.
Michael, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, just on the issue of long-term care, Premier, what in this federal budget do you see that might help you get more beds built sooner?
So I think our math was 90 million we saw going to long-term care, if you just do quick math with what they announced globally. Now, I don't know if that's within 1 year or not. And I don't know if it would be targeted at beds. That's just the number that comes to mind. We're going to continue to look at how we advance the projects, the oldest buildings. So we have a team that's looking at the highest requirements, and we're going to look at capital. We've already announced the operational funds that are in there, and if there's something we need to contribute to leverage the federal funds, we can consider that. But we have a substantial increase in this budget of $100 million for operating for long-term care.
I believe we have Jennifer Henderson on the line. Do you have any questions for the Premier?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Premier Rankin. Just wondering if there's anything in this budget that could help Nova Scotia establish the Atlantic Loop to get us off coal faster. I see there's something that mentioned $5 billion over 7 years, starting this year, for the Net Zero Accelerator, a program to fast-track decarbonization projects. I have no idea whether something like the Atlantic Loop might qualify, but did you and your people see anything that looks like a potential avenue to get that going?
Great question. I don't see anything specific. I think the Atlantic Loop would come out of the Canadian Infrastructure Bank opportunity if there's a project advanced, and I continue to press for that. I've only had one meeting with the federal government on that issue and voiced my support for moving in that direction. I do see the same program you're referencing. I don't think that's the program that'll do that, but it, you know, 5 million spread across the whole country. We're 3% of the country, so I don't think the loop would fit under that, but that's a positive investment to get to net neutral, which I would support, and I'm sure there's projects we can look at in our province that could help in that direction. There's also tax credits for carbon capture and other areas of the green economy that look good too.
Jennifer, do you have any other questions?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, last chance. Any last questions from the phone line?
Yes, this is Derek Montague. If I can ask one last question.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I also realize that the tourism industry and the airport industry was hoping for help across Canada, and certainly that's true of both the airports in Nova Scotia and businesses that rely on tourism. Premier Rankin, I was just wondering, what's your view on what was or wasn't included in the budget for the airport and tourism industries, especially with summer coming up?
So I see $1 billion over 3 years they have for tourism and supporting groups like ACOA. They're going to need to support their airports. That's under their jurisdiction, so I expect them to support our Halifax airport. They're going to need to do that, and we'll work with the airport to ensure that they're being able to survives through the pandemic.
Just going back to the childcare, would the priority be to first get more spaces or to get down to that $10 a day, or are both doable at the same time?
I'd have to see the analysis. I asked for options from the Department of Education, and hopefully I'll see those in the next few days, that we can look at what are our best leveraging opportunities, what's the criteria that they have in front of us. But it's all those things. It's reducing the cost for parents, looking at what our child ECEs make, and improving capacity, making sure it's inclusive environment.
Premier, this was your first sitting as Premier. However, the budget you tabled doesn't have a whole lot of your fingerprints on it, other than the extra $100 for income assistance. What do you hope Nova Scotians see in this budget that tells them something about you and your government?
Well, that's not true. We added long-term care increases, and that was from the expert panel. I asked for initiatives for mental health and addictions. There's 3 new initiatives in there. When we set up the new office, we knew we wanted more as we waited to staff the 15 people in that office. So we have more support for addiction hubs across the province, single session therapy, and access to e-mental health. And then the other one's public health. That has been underinvested in this province for a long time, and we've increased that by $6 million this year. So we're going to add FTEs to bolster our public health system. So those are key areas of priority that I ran on. And then on equity, we have a lot of initiatives to help our province succeed with more inclusive economic growth, making sure all Nova Scotians participate in that recovery, and more sustainable growth by advancing legislation to enhance more solar energy projects, and looking at Crown Lands Act, managing our Crown lands in a way that Leahy recommended. So I would say in less than 2 months, we've accomplished a lot.
Okay, sorry, I prefaced my question because when we last asked you that, the only thing that had come up was the $100 a month bump up in IA.
That was the
These
first.
those other things didn't come up.
Well, I think you were talking about when you asked Labby,
Right,
the Minister
yeah.
of Finance. He pointed out that one main thing that I
Right.
personally asked for. That was something that I thought was needed. $100 increase that's the main increase that I asked for. But I did run on some other initiatives that have all increased.
And those were added since your government took power?
Yeah.
These were add-ons to whatever McNeil had put together?
Correct.
Okay, I did not know that.
Well, it was a status quo budget. That was his direction. So he may have added them. We don't know. But he wanted to make sure a new leader could put his own stamp on the budget.
And, okay, so back to my original question, what do you hope people see in that budget that tells them something about the way you plan to govern?
The 3 E's: economy, environment, and equity. This is an opportunity for our province, and I think that this is what we need to grasp right now as we get through the pandemic and rebuild our economy. We need to make sure it's a more sustainable one. I have an economic growth council with people that are like-minded, that lead in clean tech, digital. We're in the 4th industrial revolution right now, so we need to tap into what are our comparative advantages in Nova Scotia. So I clearly see that opportunity. I don't think the opposition's focused on that right now.
We're almost at time. I just wanted to check with Lindsay, Alicia.
All right, so what have you offered Ontario in the way of help since they've asked for your help?
We're just looking in that right now. As I said, we intend to keep our vaccines, but we're looking into potential resources that we might have available. So I talked with one discussion with Department of Health. They're going to come back with options.
When?
Hopefully soon. I don't know when.
Okay.
That's all the time we have. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you, Premier.
Thank you.